All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Revelation Per Minute broadcast. I am your host, Brian Wilson, and it sounds as though our guest is arriving on cue, and our guest tonight is Marshall Masters, and he is a book publisher and is also, he's responsible for the book we discussed last night, Jesus and the Third Temple. He is the publisher for Robert Ryland's book, but he also has this book, Planet X Forecast, and a 2012 Survival Guide. Now, I know you're thinking, wait, it's 2013, but that was yesterday. Hallelujah! But we're still just on the edge of 2012, so we are welcoming Marshall back to the show, and we're gonna discuss some of the things in this book, regardless of the fact that 2012 is in the title. Amen. All right, welcome, Marshall. How are you?
Okay, we're here.
Yes, we are still here. The Mayans were wrong.
No.
Or were they?
I thought December. No. I mean, December 21, 2012 was a huge success. The whole point of prophecy is to create awareness. It's not to entertain people. It's to create awareness. It's to make them look at the world around. And December 21, 2012 did that. And I'll tell you what was good evidence of that was on December 22, we should have seen nonstop hysterical, cynical chest beating and ranting. The most I saw was a couple of links on Drudge in the morning, which he pulled off by noontime. And that was it. And there's no cynical browbeating on December 21, 2012. And I watched the media very closely that day because I was looking to see if we would have the cynical browbeating. We've seen that before. Remember the Y2K Millennium Bug and other things, and they get up there with their righteous rants and, off with their heads kind of nonsense. Well, it didn't happen this time because a couple of reasons. One, there was more of a sigh of relief than anything else. But two, was that a lot of people started looking around. They started looking at the world. My last video that I put up, Two Suns in the Sky, 1.7 million views, and if you include the people who mirrored it, it's well over 2.25 million views. All right? What does that say? All of these people are coming into awareness. They're looking for answers because they see the world around them is sending very troubling signals. All right, in the last decade is the warmest on record. 2012 will finish as the hottest year ever on record. The Mississippi, upper Mississippi, is going to become unnavigable for barges probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks if weather patterns don't change on the drought. We've got microquakes popping up on the Canary Islands again. There's all kinds of things that are happening, and people are seeing this, the crazy weather patterns. They're looking for answers, and they're going to continue looking for answers. So, the whole thing here is that all of the nonsense with natural variability and all of the other rational-sounding explanations for a world that is evidencing pain is something that it's gone beyond that for the public zeitgeist. So I look at December 21, 2012 as a huge success because it did what every prophecy is supposed to do: wake people up. And I've seen people wake up in the millions as a result of that. So warts and all, there it is. And bottom line, bucko, the truth of it is that the universe is not unfolding at the speed of human expectations.
Oh, I ain't rushing it either, Marshall. It's happening fast
nobody's
enough.
Rushing it, but everybody had all kinds of crazy expectations, and the most salacious and insane things weren't coming from the people who are doing the research. The most salacious and crazy things were coming from the media. Into the world, whatever, and they were going on. So they never They never were interested. You know, I was interviewed by National Geographic, and they asked me about that, and I said, hey, guys, you know, what we don't know about the Mayans is a lot more than what we think we may know. All but 4 codices were burned by the church. Less than half the sites have been explored by archaeologists, but yet you had a people capable of making cement using a manufacturing method much like ours today, and cement is the cornerstone of a foundation. It binds and bonds things together. It creates your architecture, just as it did for the Romans. And so these people had a focus on that date, not even on the date. They didn't care about, because their calendar is as accurate, arguably, as an atomic clock. Our calendar stinks. And, you know, we have to, you know, we're always gerrymandering the thing and moving and leap year and whatever. You know, theirs just went click, a click, a click, like gears in a wheel. But the point here is that they were saying this is an important time. This is the beginning of an age. And doesn't mean the beginning of an age is something that happens in between a commercial break. The beginning of an age is something that can take generations, but still the same. More people are aware as a result of it, and because they're aware, more of them are preparing for whatever may come their way, and it's going to be helpful for them. And much the same way, if you look at the folks of New York, the best thing that ever happened to New York was Katrina. Could you imagine if that storm had hit New York without something like a Katrina in the national memory? The New Yorkers, hey, yo, I'm tough. What? You're going to take your blow and mess with me? You know, get lost. Hey, and they're going to do that New York bravado nonsense.
Oh, but they actually did.
In tens of thousands.
Yeah, most of them did do.
If it hadn't have been for Katrina, Sandy would have been in the tens of thousands, because those idiots would have stayed there and been flooded and burned out en masse. Could you imagine what happened if everybody in Sandy Point had said, you know, we're going to just stay out here?
Yeah.
Not just the diehard few that saw it burned down, but everybody decided to stay because they were gutsy New Yorkers. Most of them would have died. So that is the point of prophecy. That's the point of experience. And I think that's the reason why in the final analysis you didn't see Drudge and everyone else beating their chests and laughing hysterically at people.
No. And so, yeah, I don't remember seeing anything much about it either the day after, now that you mention it.
No. And the media wasn't going to do it because the media would have had to point the finger at itself. Okay?
Well, there shouldn't have been so much hoopla, and I've said that all along. And during my broadcasts even, Marshall, I was saying, you know, how do we know that the guy making the calendar just didn't get sick or die or something, or maybe they got involved in a war or something that stopped them from going any further, you know?
Well, to me, I mean, the Mayan culture died for the same things that are attacking us right now. Okay?
All right.
They simply went beyond good stewardship of the planet, and they were exploiting their resources. They hit a period of drought, and they collapsed. All right? And the thing is that a lot of people don't really realize that most of civilization is built in some of the most dangerous areas along coastlines and along fault lines. We build around coastlines because obvious benefits of that. We build along fault lines because that's where you find deep water and all of the minerals you need to run a modern society. And so consequently, we're sitting out here in the worst zones, but not that we think twice about that.
Well, I sometimes do, when I'm in Florida here and I see water on the sides of the road and different things, and there's a lot of bodies of water around. And I think, wow, would it really take a lot, for this to be underwater again? It
will. It will. And I mean, you can say, fine, all I want is the hard science. What the hard science is saying is you're going to be treading water. Okay? So, we are looking at the ice is melting, our magnetic poles are shifting. What most people don't understand is that weight is weight, all right? And if you have all of this water sitting locked up in ice, and then it melts, and that fresh water is going to roll off into the oceans and pool up in other areas, and you shift that weight, all right? It's crustal displacement. And so we're seeing, for example, in magnitude 6.0 quakes in particular, major quakes, which would be anything of 5.5 and above, but from 6.0, you're talking about, we've seen in the last decade a 40% increase. And so there's a lot of signs. It drives the topic, but still the same. December 21, 2012, on one hand, it was a pain in the ass. Okay? Period. I mean, it was just a tail that was wagging the dog for everybody's topics, particularly because the media was driving. But the media was driving because it was resonating with people. And so you had one of two choices. You either ride the wave or you get ground under. Okay? And, I rode the wave because I knew that this would create, it was an awareness thing that was going to happen. And that, to me, is really important.
Yeah, yep. So you didn't fully expect anything super dramatic on that particular day, but you knew that it would be kind of, what do they call it, like a change of the new age or whatever. What's the word I'm looking for? But basically a change of mindset or something. Is that all you expected, or did you expect something more of the end of the Mayan calendar?
I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I was on your show. You could play back, and I remember, I just said, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm planning on getting up and having a cup of coffee.
That's
exactly what I did. Okay, so, but on the other hand, I'm still, the thing of it is you have to ask the question, what has changed? Okay? Let's ask that question. What has changed? And for everybody, it's different. For me, nothing has changed. I'm still doing the same research I was doing last year. I'm still following the same things I was. The only difference is we don't have this tsunami distraction, this media tsunami around December 21, 2012. And I find that relaxing because we can actually focus on the key issues without this prismatic distraction. But on the other hand, this prismatic distraction has made a huge difference, brought a lot of people into awareness, and awareness is the path to consciousness, and consciousness is the greatest strength for survival in a global catastrophe. So I don't care what you call it. I call it a success because it will have saved lives in the long run, and that's it. For me, that's the alpha to omega. Boom. Does it save lives? Good. If it doesn't, hey, who needs it?
Well, you mentioned the pole shift potential a minute ago, and that's due to the weight of extra water in the oceans. Is that what you think is going to bring about the pole shift, or is it going to be more with the Planet X approaching or something to that effect, or is it going to be a combination of these things?
Well, I look at the underlying forces and things that are moving. I think an analogy that I probably have used on your show, I always use it, is that to me, all of this is kind of like going to the circus. Circus comes to town. It's a 3-ring circus, big tent. Now, you can get out on the sideshow and have fun with whack-a-mole and cotton candy and the bearded lady. But the big show is in the big tent, and that's where you find me. And when I'm looking I'm seeing, what am I seeing in the three rings? In the small one to the left, I'm seeing humanity. In the small one to the far right, I'm seeing the future. And in the big center ring, I see the earth. Because when you're talking about survival, it's what happens on the earth that will determine whether you live or die. What happens in space is whatever is going to happen in space, period. But what happens on Earth is something that you can, if you're in a state of awareness, that gives you an advantage. Might not be a huge advantage, might be a day or two ahead of most of the typical people, but a day or two can mean a lot in terms of access to supplies, clear roads, lodging, and open freeways.
True.
And so there's good things to be said there, but we're still looking at it's the Mississippi. You got a river that is so low that shipwrecks are now fully exposed. Shipwrecks that were at one time so deep sunk in the river that they didn't present a threat to barge traffic.
Wow.
We have a drought, all right, and throughout the whole breadbasket, basically. A lot of folks weren't able to get a nice Christmas tree this year because they're dying in the fields, no water.
Yeah.
We have, there's a whole litany of things that you can go on and talk about. And the thing, though, is that I'm at least glad to see that the mainstream media is starting to report this a little more responsibly. In terms of the drought, I think CBS has done a fabulous job on that. But these things are going on, and people are aware of this the same way that they're aware of that, cell phones cook your brains, but we like to use a cell phone. They're aware of it that too many vaccinations and your kid could come down with autism from all the heavy metal poisoning. Now, do cell phone companies go and say, yeah, we're cooking your brains, and there's really no difference between a brain that has been cooked rare and medium rare, so don't worry about it? No, they just deny it. Folks that are making the vaccines, hey, what do you mean? Heavy metals are good for you. So there's nothing to worry about. So all these vested interests are going to say there's nothing to worry about. But there's a zeitgeist consciousness out there that people are just saying, look, I don't trust you anymore. And that's trusting these alleged super sources of omnipotence. That's when things begin to shift in a different direction. So I look at the overall trends. I see what is happening, and I see a lot of positive things going, and I see a lot of good awareness as well. You look at what's happening in the world today. Are the really wonderful, heroic things coming from governments? No, it's coming from people. You got NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They're popping up like weeds faster than they can be counted. They work on bare-bones budgets all over the world, and they do everything for love and to help others. And their only satisfaction is in seeing people lifted up. And you don't have some administrator who says, that's great, I have $1 million budget, 90% of which is going to go into my Swiss bank account. You don't have all of this corruption and evil that comes when governments start administering these programs. These NGOs are out there. They're helping more people with less resources, more quickly, much better at it. And so I see those. I see a lot of good people. It's always easy to focus on the jerks. They're the ones with the megaphones. Decent people, the meek of the earth, are quiet. They just go about living life and making it the best.
Amen. That's kind of what we do. A lot of our ministry, I think, is just to make it a better place. As you said, to save a few lives if the next disaster comes. Maybe some people will have prepared a little bit more because of this event, The 2012 thing, or the 2000 Y2K.
Yeah. But what you have to understand is more than that. It's more than just preparing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Preparing is once you take the first step on that journey of awareness.
Yeah.
The journey of awareness will bring you to consciousness, all right? And so the experience of doing this and observing your world and reading the signs and understanding that you are part of a biosphere, that you are not the Lord and Master of everything you see, but you are an integral part of a biosphere, and that your God-given obligation is to be a good steward of that gift, okay? And more people are waking up to realize that we're not. We're atrocious. They see what happened. I think a huge shift in consciousness, and that was not December 21, 2012. I think that was a fusion event. I think it was a focus event. I think that the real shift in consciousness happened on 3/11.
Okay.
That was when Fukushima blew.
That's when what happened?
And
Fukushima?
that's when Fukushima Daiichi in Japan. That's when we had that huge quake, and it took out those 4 nuclear reactors, and people are watching these absolute horrific vessels of death exploding, and it really was a convergence of a natural disaster and an industrial accident, which is now the worst industrial accident ever in the history of humankind. And it could even be worse. If we have, they're trying right now, TEPCO's trying to move the fuel rods out. They put in a tent so that they could hopefully contain accidental releases. But the bottom line is, if there's something that happens in the middle of, while they're trying to empty that spent fuel, and that fuel catches fire, there's no way to know how bad it's going to be, because all they have is theoretical models. They've never tested an actual setting of fire for these things. It will burn like magnesium. It will be unstoppable. And the estimates range, but most likely you could count on probably a good portion of the center of the main island of Japan becoming uninhabitable, with all kinds of consequences for those of us here in America. So people are seeing all of these threats, and they're aware of all of that, and there are folks that are looking for information, but most still are not.
Wow. So for being in Japan, it would be better to, well, I guess we're downwind, so I don't know. It's affecting the whole world, that radiation.
Well, eventually it does, all right. Yeah. But, when it's crossing the Pacific, it's just think of it as the radiation train. First stop is West Coast.
God help us.
And then it's a matter of share the experience, you might say.
Yeah.
So there's all of that. There's things to be concerned about, but also it's when you realize how fragile we are when we set aside our arrogance and our hubris, and we realize that Mother Nature can literally grind us to pieces pretty darn fast, and there's no way for ourselves to invent a way out of that. That then forces people to examine our entire view of who we are and how we exist on this world, how we exist on this planet. And it's not, to me, a moral judgment, and it's not, to me, it's a matter of survival wisdom. That you look at the history of the sinking of Atlantis, at the time that Atlantis went down, they were engaged in horrific foreign wars. They were busy killing and being killed. So busy killing and being killed that they were caught completely unawares and perished in great numbers. So the folly of man is that distraction. And missing what's really important has nothing to do with, being judged or being spiritual or being anything else. It has everything to do with survival. If you are out of touch with your environment, hey, you got a bullseye on your head. It's as simple as that. And I think that is the larger lesson that's being learned.
So, when was this sinking of Atlantis, Marshall, exactly? Do you know a time frame for that? I mean, I've never heard a lot of details on it. Did it actually happen? They were actually in wars and things? And what caused them to go underwater?
Well, we publish a book called the Kolbrin Bible. It's ancient historic accounts by the Egyptians and then Celts. All right, and it's a secular text. It's a wisdom text. And what the ancient Egyptians say is that an object which they call, and the Hebrews call, both the Hebrews and the Egyptians use the same term, the destroyer. And the destroyer is mentioned in the Bible and in the Tanakh, the Torah, if you will, the Old Testament as it is for the Jewish people. If you go into, depending on whichever translations you have, it'll be translated directly as the destroyer, or then they'll find some other way to do it. But I find the newer editions of the Bible are more accurate because there's a more scientific method in terms of going to the root, the etymology of the words. But still the same, there's a lot of preparation in this for an object like that. And the Egyptians say that the Great Deluge, the sinking of Atlantis, and the 10 plagues of Exodus were all caused by the flyby of this object. So,
so that was the last flyby.
That's right. The Exodus was the last flyby.
And they happen however many often, like every so many years?
Approximately. The Exodus was approximately 3,600 years ago. I mean, it depends on how you time it. One thing, I find is interesting is while there's a lot of speculation as who the Pharaoh of Exodus was, one thing I found in common with the Kolbrin Bible and with the Tanakh is that no mention is given of the family name of Pharaoh.
Right.
Only referred to as Pharaoh. I think that there was an agreement of sorts, if you will, between Moses and his family, that he understood that this was going to be for them a horrific defeat. He was, and I'm sure it had to be painful for him because these were the people that raised him, that loved him, that had hopes and dreams for him, and he had to choose between love and blood. And I mean, you're talking about people who have been in bondage for generations are not going to be, socially a hell of a lot of fun. Not as much as, an imperial palace. So,
he had a mess of life going on when he was on the Egyptian side, being raised by Pharaoh's daughter. So.
Yeah. And so, and I think that in the final days, I think he climbed the mount to watch the Hebrews go off into the promised land. And personally, I don't think it was a punishment from God. I think it was him just saying, hey, I fulfilled the mission. I got him here. I'm flying on my own time. I want to mourn the loss of my family in Egypt. And I think that's what really happened on Mount Nebo. But that I'm sure that would bring into conflict with certain folks, but that's the way I feel about it. So there's a definite history of that. We have this pattern, and I will also say that Your listeners can go to archives of all the different radio shows I've been on. Lord, there's been many of them. I've been on Coast several times. Mm-hmm. And I've always said through the years that if this is a rock concert, all right, 2012 is the warm-up band, and 2013 is the headline act. And 2012 was a warm-up band. 2013, we'll have the headline act. Whatever big is going to happen is going to happen. It'll be this year.
God.
And if we don't see it happen by 2014, then yippee, we missed a bullet. But at the end of that process, I think we're still going to have this process of transformation that's been triggered and going on, of awareness and consciousness, because it's through consciousness that people are going to realize that we have to reprioritize what's really important to us. Mm-hmm. Right now, we live in a world devoted to what? Profit. That's all. Profit. Yeah. And that's the reason why you have iPhone, smartphone app developers who know where your children are when you don't, and what they like more than you do. They know things about your children you don't know. Now you're going to have smart meters on the side of your house that are going to tell people electronically when you're up, when you're going to sleep, when you're doing the dirty with the old lady, and when your kids are home alone. Okay? All of this information is profilable by these smart meters that the power companies are going to want to be doing, and it's a fascism control. You have these things that are going on. But to me, what I see is the bigger trend on the other hand. People are coming into awareness, and I know that path of awareness draws them into consciousness where they begin thinking about the bigger issues above and beyond where they're going to go shopping for a deal tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it's a process that can take years and decades to unfold in a life. But it is a positive process nonetheless. And I have seen it triggered on a massive scale as a result of this last year.
Yes, and I've had the people, John and Pauline, have been on about the smart meters. I know that was just one of the examples of something you've mentioned, but what I hadn't heard it detailed to that extent that it's going to be able to tell so much about us. Is it like a spying device, or is it just simply monitoring when you're using the majority of your electricity and at what peak times? Or does it actually spy on what's going on in your bedroom and such?
Look, okay, you go to box stores like Costco, you go through the door and there's a guy or a gal there and you got a little clicker in their hands, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, they're going to see how many people walk through the door, right?
Yeah, and then they probably have a camera doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, if you want to have a little bit of awareness about smart meters, go get yourself one of them little gadgets. They're cheap. And then during the day, every time you throw a switch, a power switch, or you do something that would cause a change in the electrical state of a device. For example, you open a door, which lets in cold air, and the heater has to kick on. All right? These kind of things. Or you're coming home and driving up the drive, and the sensor lights up the outside lights, okay? So, but on the other hand, you get up in the morning, you turn on the bathroom light, and you get on your toothbrush and, start going with the Oral-B and whatnot. Everything that draws current can be profiled over time. And the end goal of smart meter companies is to be able to come into your house and turn off major appliances. All right? So that if they see that they've got an industrial company, customer that's going through a shift change and needs a lot of electricity, then what do? They can go into residential neighborhoods adjoining that factory, and just simply command the meters to turn off everyone's refrigerators for a few hours. And then they have more energy to throw at their industrial. But at the same time, it's an e-controller. It's a device that any computer in the world, if you have access to the security system, your power can be cut off by anybody. So, it's only a matter of time before the government starts using it. It's way too much invasive power for the government not to want to have a hand on. So before there's arrest, they kill your smart meter. If you haven't paid your taxes, they kill your smart meter. All of this can be done anonymously. Nobody has to walk up to the side of your house and do it and risk being abused. They just simply press a key on a keyboard, and you are now controlled, because when you are in the dark, your life comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And that's it. Okay? It's almost as, you're going to be as desperate for power as you are for air. Think about all those folks after the storms and all the lamentations about people. Oh, my God, I haven't had power for 5 days. Oh, my God, I haven't had power for 2 weeks. We're sitting here, breaking desks and furniture apart to stay warm. All right?
Mm-hmm.
That is, imagine taking that kind of power disruption and doing it. So, these things are awful. Plus, they're rating us. It's, they put out 1 watt of power, and if you have a block of them, like low-income families typically, you're in large complexes, they'll have a block of meters, 20, 30 meters sitting there, and if all these meters are popping off at 1 watt, for all of the children that are going to sleep at night, it's like laying their heads down in a bed of cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go on about smart meters for a long time.
Wow. So I guess when Pauline and John were on, they told me a few things. They told me it even affects your skin, gives you skin rashes and different things from the constant bombarding that it puts on us. But getting back to your book a little bit, on page 4, you've defined what is Planet X, and you call it a generic term, used by astronomers to denote an as-yet undiscovered planet. Now, we've heard a lot about Planet X, and, we've heard that term, and we've heard it called Nibiru, and, some of the other planets' names, Do you think that the best way to define it is that it's a planet that's going to be a near miss? You talk about a near future flyby as well in your book. Is this tied in with the Planet X, the near future flyby on page 13? Is that tied in with?
Yeah, first off, we're with the book, and we're looking at this period in time. What I can tell you is a lot of people are looking up, and we're getting a lot of folks that are sending us cell phone observations of what they have seen to be 2 suns in the sky.
I've seen some of that.
And we get, I would say that on the reports, and we're following up and doing this, the problem with cell phone observations is that it really falls into what I call the UFO conundrum, ufology conundrum, where 90% can be easily debunked and 10% is unexplainable, but never is there going to be an acknowledgement. All right? So I don't care how many thousands of cell phone pictures you have up there, until people are all across the globe making a naked eye observation, it's not going to sink in. It's going to sink in for a few, but not for all. But, the folks that are making these observations, I follow up with them, and I've been following this trend actually since 2003. What I observed from 2003 onward was that it was all disinformationalists, sometimes trolls and cranks, but principally it was disinformationalists, because it was to create a knee-jerk response. an inoculation, if you will, so that now you see somebody putting up a two-sun picture and people just go, reflection, reflection, sundog, sundog, sundog. And they've already got the rejection mantra down. I find it interesting when I go through some image analysts, and I really see how that has affected their judgment, because I'll send them 2 or 3 pictures, and they'll say, well, I don't think the second object is real because it's not as sharp as the first object. But then I send them another picture that has the second object is actually sharper than the sun, which is directly the opposite. And so the same rule in other words, in both cases, it's called, they say, it's a reflection or it's a sundog. But I'm going, hold on a second. The first time you said that the second object has to be as sharp or sharper than the first object. But when it is, then you say that it's proof that it's a reflection. So the point of it with the debunkers is that the goalposts are going to move. That's the reason why we have the ufology conundrum, is that the goalposts keep moving. And if you look at the debunking has the logic and the reasoning sometimes is far more absurd than what they're attacking. Now, and there's these, this assumption, if it was this, then I would believe it. And so, what happens is that nothing is subjective. But people are looking, and they're sending us some interesting stuff. And I don't like to talk about it, because if I start talking about it, people will disappear and the sources of information will disappear. That also has been an all-time, as I've always said, first rule of Planet X research: closer something comes to the truth, the faster it disappears. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, you've told me they take things down mysteriously off of the website, even with, wasn't it one of your crop circle things that you had mentioned, that they took it down and it was down for several hours and it came back,
Right.
Made you wonder.
It came down. But it's like, what people really do not grow, is that when the whole conversation of Planet X comes around, all right, everybody, there's this naive assumption that this whole topic, just started, on the internet with Nancy Leader or something, all right? I got news for you. In terms, the search for Planet X began after the discovery of Neptune, because they observed perturbations in the orbit of Neptune, and then they knew that they had to have a large perturber out there that was causing that. And so the search was on. And Percival Lowell, man who mapped the canals on Mars, and it was the Lowell Observatory was where Pluto was discovered, okay? And the reason why Pluto was discovered in the Lowell Observatory was that they were looking for Planet X. That's why Percival Lowell built it. So in terms of modern Planet X research, to me, Percival Lowell is the father of modern Planet X research, because he was looking for it. He built a beautiful observatory and paid to have a guy doing the work, and Tombaugh discovered Pluto, but Pluto turned out to not have the mass. All right, and so the hunt is still on. And now we have, there's a channel on YouTube called 00 The Sky. It's on my website. If you go to yowza.com, YOWUSA.com, and Skyview, 00 The Skyview. These guys are saying that they are using their own infrared telescopes, and rather powerful telescopes for amateurs, and they're observing it, and they're posting their observation images. And we've had disclosure videos that came out in 2008. So all of this stuff, though, until, hey, Moses came down from the mountain with the tablets, and what were the Hebrews doing? Like, hey, get lost. We're making a golden cow. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, getting people's attention can be a little difficult, can't it?
Yes. Yes, that's true. That's true. And you already mentioned that the Egyptians referred to Planet X as the destroyer. So, so this Planet X that we're discussing, is it another flyby from the same planet, or is this a different planet that we're just using the same terminology?
Well, Nibiru is translated. Nibiru is the planet of. What we're seeing coming in, what's being reported, and for years, I've just simply said Planet X is a generic term that could. We know that there is a perturber out there, but exactly what it is, we don't know. All right, and what this really turns out to be is a mini constellation, essentially a small solar system that orbits and passes through our larger orbit, our larger solar system. But it's really a mini constellation because we're all part of a solar system. But visualize it, for people, I guess it would be easier for them to kind of visualize this chaotic dance, if you will, of two solar systems, one very small and one very large. But then again, we've seen through history where minorities can make a lot of trouble.
So, yes. Now, we mentioned weather patterns earlier in the show and the drought and these kind of things. And you do talk about this on page 20. You said the weather on Earth by mid-2011 will be more violent than any weather ever seen in recorded history, with earthquakes, breaking records and an increase in volcanism. Yes, we are seeing. Wow, we are really seeing these things come to pass. So I guess you predicted that one correctly, and the 2013. Wow, it's just beginning today. So we are in for I guess a little shock with that.
Well,
what do you
have a
think?
Big shock with it. I'm sitting here this morning, and I've been, I get an update. I track several channels. I will say that I'm seeing some there's a whole new generation. When I started doing this stuff back in 1999, there was an old school crowd that pretty much all faded away. But now I'm seeing the new school. I'm seeing the young guys coming in, and like Suspicious Observers and some of these others on YouTube. And these guys just are Energizer bunnies. I love them. They're doing it by the numbers. They're doing a fabulous job. I think they're doing really good science because they're asking really good questions, and the kind of questions that, it's debunking is not going to be achieved with a couple of mean-spirited potshots. And so these guys, for me, I just love seeing this new generation of folks. And in terms of the long run on the topic, yeah, this will dip down. We've gone through this cycle where there's been a lot of hype, a lot of hump, a lot of pump. But I'm not complaining about that. This is one time when I'm really not complaining about the media hyping 2012 because it was selling credit cards and tampons for their advertisers. I don't care, because what they did was they created awareness, and that's what I want. Sorry to say for those out there that want a moral win, but sometimes, the means do justify the end, or the end does justify the means, and I think it's one of those things here. So I'm pleased to see that. In terms of the general interest in the topic, First off, I'm not driven by stats and interest. I just do this for myself, and then I share it with everybody else. Okay?
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's just the way I do it. That's the reason why I don't publish unless I have something to say. I'm not nervous about maintaining loyalty of an audience. It's like, you want it, fine. Here, I'm sharing it. That's the point of knowledge. You share it with people. But I was expecting the topic to take a real serious nosedive, and it really hasn't. It's dipped. I think that's also in part because of holidays, also in part of the fiscal cliff story demanding everything. So I didn't see the cynical attacks that I was expecting to see. I didn't see the devastating, the devastating fallback. And I mean, I've seen that. Back in 2003, Nancy Lieder had a lot of her material lifted by a guy by the name of Mark Hazelwood. He literally just plagiarized her, never did any original research, created a hell of a panic. Right? And then afterwards, oh my God, came the recriminations, and it was just by July of 2003 it died, and in August of 2003, that month, we kind of wanted to test the waters out there, and we put up an article, "Is it time to revisit Planet X?" including ourselves. 4 people read it. Not so with this, not so with this time. I mean, even my 2 Suns in the Sky video is still between 4,000 to 5,000 views a day, and after December 21, 2012. So the interest is there. It's at a lower level, and then what will happen is, in time, unfortunately, we are going to have a major natural event, and then that is going to shake loose a lot of people, probably the ones that were in some way touched or had some kind of casual interest in December 21, 2012, but didn't follow it too well, but they were in awareness about it. And then when we have the next major event, at that point, that initial curiosity will translate into awareness, and in a very rapid sense, and then the topic will rush back. It'll come back really strong because, like I said, this topic is very old. And in terms of the modern sense, we're talking about a search for Planet X that's gone on for over a century.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things just keep going on and on, like the Energizer Bunny, but eventually, we're going to get to that point where it's going to be more relevant. We've even seen, like, a couple of years ago where they had to repaint the lines at the airport. I think it was in Miami or Orlando. It was somewhere in Florida. What's that?
They're having to do it.
Because of
magnetic
changing.
North. Yeah, magnetic north moving, and it's moving in these large. I mean, first off, it always moves. All right. The question is how much and how far. It's not a new thing. This has always happened, but what we are seeing is they're the early signs of a magnetic pole shift that you'll have regional magnetic flips, which will begin occurring in the South Atlantic. And we started seeing those back really, I think, in about 2008, when, as you recall, in the South Atlantic, there were a couple of fly-by-wire jets passenger jets that went down. As a result of that, it wasn't reported here in the United States, but the Russian military then issued orders to their pilots that the South Atlantic was now a no-fly zone. They didn't want them flying down there. And because of the concern being that these magnetic pole flips, where you fly through a region where polarity shifts, where all of a sudden negative is positive and positive is negative, it really, is going to...
It's going to mess with your aircraft.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To say the least.
So it's going to mess it up. It's going to bring it down. And so these are the things that we have to look at. And but we also see all of the seismicity. We see all of the other signs, and people are seeing it. I see a lot more awareness, and for this I'm glad. For this I'm glad, because that awareness leads to consciousness, and consciousness brings more harmony. See, consciousness is important for people because everyone says, okay, I'm going to survive this global catastrophe. So the whole conversation is about bunkers, beams, and bullets. That's it. Mm-hmm. You look at television, and what do? They're talking about, well, maybe this, maybe that, and then they show some people, going out and getting supplies and shooting their guns and practicing and whatever, and it's all very shallow and superficial. But the point here is you can have a year's supply of bullets and beams in your bunker, but if you don't have the spiritual consciousness to endure that you're sitting down there for a year waiting for some hungry sons of guns to dig you out, kill you, and take your stuff. All right?
Yeah.
What do you got to hold on?
I never thought about it.
What's going to give you the moral strength to endure? The Bible says the meek inherit the earth. Go read the dictionary and look at the etymology of the word meek. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the insane elitist definition that is used today. When the term meek was first coined, it was salt of the earth people, quiet, enduring, reliable, steady. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so through the consciousness, people understand that to survive, it's not about dog eat dog and kill the other guy. It is about like-minded people joining together unconditionally to survive. And that will be a consciousness-raising event that will focus us on our relationships and focus us on how we are in touch with the world around us, and that, in turn, will profoundly change us. Once we're no longer texting, messages to each other about a blue light special at Kmart, things change.
Yeah. That's true. Soon we're going to be talking about how to survive. I mean, and it could be as simple as a natural, a hurricane or an earthquake or, a tsunami. There's so many different things that, as you mentioned, can affect the coasts. Or you could have a huge earthquake along the New Madrid fault line, which would affect the whole country and probably most of the world. So. Well,
I'm really, this morning, I'm watching with concern, all right, because there's about a dozen, these are small quakes, about 2.2 to 2.6 in that range. But there's been a whole lot of quake activity popping up on Faro, which is the island south of La Palma in the Canary Islands. The Canary Islands is off of the coast of Africa, southwest of Morocco.
Yeah.
If you visualize that in your mind. Now, there's two volcanoes on La Palma, and the one that's of concern is La Cumbre de Vija. And if the western flank, which already cracked and separated in an eruption event that happened after World War II, if that flank of that volcano collapses, it's going to send a huge, devastating wall of water that's going to slam the whole East Coast from Maine to Florida. And we're talking about something that would make the 3/11 quake that nailed Japan look small in comparison.
Wow. That's not good.
Right.
That's not good. I mean, I know.
And we have this uplift, we have this seismicity. There's, all of this quake patterns going on again. These are just all bad signs.
Yeah. I hear you. I think that you're right. Now, my people can go to yowzausa.com, and that's where they can find your books.
YOWUSA.com. Mm-hmm.
YOWUSA.com. Okay. And that's also a place where they can get a hold of Jesus and the Third Temple, which we discussed with Robert Ryland last night as well. And and then you have a YouTube account if they go
Yale Books.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think we just finished doing this series, The Great Tribulation, with Bob, and I know you've been enjoying it with Monique, and for me, I've really kind of gotten interested in studying what I call non-doctrinal eschatology, and which to me, that's what Bob is doing. It's non-doctrinal. And I will have to say, when I look at what I've been talking about over the years as compared to eschatology, once I get into this and really see what the prophecies are, man, that makes me look like Mary Poppins.
Yeah. Okay, well, I tell you what, Miss Poppins, we gotta let you go. I've got another guest coming on for the second hour, and I keep hearing this noise that signifies that the guest is there. But thank you, Marshall.
On the door.
Yeah, we sure are glad to have you come on and tell us a little bit about this. And folks, go check it out at YOUUSA.com. YOUUSA.com.
There you go.
And thank you for coming on, and Lord bless you, and we'll talk to you soon, Marshall.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Your life dreams are shattered. You're gone away. We've cried here for hours, and the hours turn to days. We know you regret this, leaving us here with portraits and memories that we've held so dear. When I hear your name, it's not the same. No matter what they say, I'm not okay. And we started at zero and went different ways. Now we're all out here wasting away. And if we started at zero, then how did things change? It seems like just yesterday we were the same. It's been 3 months since you left us. So far nothing's been the same. And my question without answer is, am I the one to blame? And he was such a good description of a favorite fisherman. He's for well of honor people, and he said the same for him. When I hear your name, it's not the same. No matter what they say, I'm not okay. And we started at zero and went different ways. Now we're all out here wasting away. And if we started at zero, then how did things change? Seems like just yesterday we were the same. We were the same. And we started at zero and went different ways. Now we're all out here wasting away. Wasting away. Wasting away. Wasting away.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second hour of Revelations Per Minute with the Radio Preacher Man. Brian Wilson here. Well, we had a nice discussion with Marshall Masters in the first hour about the changing weather patterns and Planet X, Nibiru, and these types of things, folks. And wow, there was much more to go. But we ran out of time, and that's all right. We have Chris Ward with us for the second hour. And Chris and I have had a chance to meet since the last time he was on the show, and he's a wonderful man. I was very impressed with with Chris, and I have one of his books here that he has illustrated, Yasha and the Secret of the Great Pyramids. And so there's just many, many things that he is keen on. He's a very knowledgeable man. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you? Yobaseo? Hello? I'm going to sneeze. Let me put my stuff on mute.
Okay, how's that?
Oh, that's better. That's better. How are you, Chris?
Pretty good. I don't know how, but it went on mute.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Good to hear some behind it.
Well, we've been just busier than ever, and you know, dealing with the changes in our lives and Monique and everything, and it's been an adjustment period. But we're still looking for the return of the Lord. Amen. We made it through the Mayan calendar, as we discussed a bit in the first hour. And I guess it was a time of awakening, you know, for a lot of people. It kind of, or was it another tarnishment, if you will, on, you know how the world views prophecy. They view it as kind of well, not so supportive sometimes, especially when people try to predict a date. You know, we saw that with that group in May 21 of 11, I think it was supposed to be the date of the return of the Lord, or May 24th. What was that fellow's name? Can't even remember now. But
I don't remember May 24th date. You don't mean Wisenot in 1988.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the 88 Reasons Why the Lord Would Return in 1988, I guess. Now, I never did get a chance to read that. I may have seen that book at one time, but this was back in the 80s. And I just didn't.
Well, you know, all of this, like, remember Y2K in 2000, and in 88 you had Wisenot and Chuck Smith and Hal Lindsey and all the rest saying it was the end of the world, and because it was 4 years after the actual creation of the nation of Israel, after thousands of years. And now we've got the Mayan 12, 21, 12, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. And all of this is for a purpose. It's to get people to think that you don't ever really have to be prepared. You don't really have to get your life right with God, because all these things are just proof that all that stuff's just a bunch of hooey. And you don't ever have to face your God and be ready to be accountable to Him, and know that when you do, everything is going to be great. You just put it off and put it off and put it off until you find yourself in oblivion.
So it's gonna. That's what I was thinking. If we tarnish prophecy by planting dates and then the dates don't come to fruition, that kind of that doesn't change the Word of God. What it does is changes people's heart, and I think it's going to help.
That's a plan. That's not a coincidence, as some Christians call it, a coinkydink. The fact of the matter is, that is the plan of the global cabal, to wear Christians down, even to the point where they don't even believe their own Word of God.
Wow, the great apostasy is going to,
you know, 2 Thessalonians 2:3, the great falling away, and then the man of perdition will be revealed, which I think is happening right now.
Mm-hmm. You think he's being revealed right now? Or
I do. I think we're really close to the return of the Lord. So close, I wouldn't want to put like hours on it, but pretty much like that. You know, if I could just jump in here and just remind you of Revelations 18:23.
Yes, sir.
You know, some people want to know, well, what is the plan at the end of the age for the enemy? You know, how is the enemy going to be able to trick us and deceive us to a point where we're all lost before we get a chance to to connect with God and be forgiven and confess Jesus as our Lord. Well, in Revelation 18, and I really hope to bring this verse alive to you and see it in a light you never saw it before.
All right.
So let me read it. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Now I want to go back and reread that, the Chris Ward translation. First of all, you need to know that Satan's plan at the end of the age is this e pluribus unum on our dollar bill. And how does he get so the many one? Well, he does it with sorceries.
What's he going to do?
Yeah, he's going to use sorceries. All the occult, all the witches, all the Satanists, all the Luciferians, all of the voodoo and the black arts. He's going to use all that to unite the world into one, and that one will be that Luciferian leader, the Antichrist. And if you go back and read this, of course this is addressed to Babylon. But Babylon goes back to the formation of Tammuz, who is Lucifer in the Old Testament. And so, in the light of a candle, that light of a candle is Lucifer. Lucifer, his media campaign is to convince the world he's the light of the world. And actually, specifically, he's referred to as the Prince of Light. But Jesus is the light of the world. And so, what is his sorcery? His sorcery is to convince many people today, many New Agers, that Lucifer means light, enlightenment. And let's not look at the dark side. Let's not look at the satanic side, because they're the same person. But let's just look at the light, and go to the light and all this stuff. So anyways, even though it means they're talking about Babylon, Lucifer was the king of Babylon. He was he was Tammuz. In the Greek, he's known as Prometheus. And in the Hebrew, he's known as Tammuz. And if you go to the Rockefeller Center in New York, you'll find at the base of that huge pineal gland is the Rockefeller. So that is where Prometheus is, and they have a big Christmas celebration and all. And of course, because Nimrod was born on Christmas, and that was his dad. And so here we have, and then it says, and the voice of the bridegroom. Well, the bridegroom is Jesus. And of the bride, Christians, shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants, and the merchants here, they're the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
These are your global elite. This is your 1% of the world. We're the great men of the earth. For by their sorceries were all nations deceived. And so when you hear a lot of these guys, these billionaires, of course they don't let you know who the real wealthy men are, but like George Soros, for example, liberals in every way, and they're all part of the Illuminati here. And they're the great men of the earth. Not the Christians, not Billy Graham, not Franklin Graham, not the people that you and I think are the great men of the earth. But these men, they call the shots, Today we have a perfect example of the agenda of the Illuminati. And believe me, this is sorcery. Paul said to the Galatians, "O foolish Galatians, what has bewitched you?" And I would give the same charge to the Christian community in America. We just elected a man who may, in fact, be the Antichrist, and nobody even cares. He's the guy in charge of partial birth abortions. He was head of the committee when he was in the Senate, and he approved all the legislation for partial birth abortion. He's the LGBT now plus Q party. The lesbian, gay, bisexual, transvestite party. And yet Christians voted for this, which is totally the opposite of what they know biblically. And so, what's their theme? What is their real battle plan? And it's simple. Out of chaos comes order. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing that today with the president letting us go off the cliff, blaming it on the opposite party, And when both parties are they're all part of the Illuminati. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican. There are so many people infiltrated in there that really work for Lucifer that I don't see how anybody can even claim that they prefer one party over another. I think one may be worse than another, but they're both wicked. And so we see this, and I've never heard anybody do this first that way. That what is the Illuminati's plan? These great merchants of the earth, these great men of the earth. What is their plan? It's sorceries. They're going to take all the sorcerers, all the shaman, all the witches, all the wizards, all the warlocks. They're going to take all the occult and all the witchcraft and all the Wicca and all the Wiccans, and they're going to infiltrate them everywhere. And then what will happen is you wake up one morning and you're wondering, like, well, gee, I'm a Christian. I think I'm the only Christian in town.
Huh.
Everybody else is into witchcraft and sorcery. And that's how they're taking over this nation and the world. They're doing it from within, even within our churches, some of our mainline denominational churches. They taught the same philosophy as the liberals and the secular humanists and the atheists. And you were talking about spiritual life. Let me just tell you something. These Illuminatis are just puppets. They're just the priests of the Androminati, which comes all the way back to Semiramis or Semi-Resmus, however you want to pronounce the Greek or the English. And she was married to Nimrod, and they produced a wicked child through incest called Tammuz, or Prometheus in the Greek. And that wicked child is Lucifer. He's the one that's mentioned in the Old Testament. And that is the program today, is to take Satan out of the scene and put Lucifer in place. And in my new book, Satan and Lucifer Decoded, I have so many good illustrations of this, where, look at the Twin Towers. They're even part of the Illuminati card game. And so why did those towers have to come down? Well, the Twin Towers represent the duality. Satan comes to us in that form of the yin and the yang. He's the good and the bad. He's the white and the black. He's the white magic, the black magic. He's the yin and he's the yang. He's esoteric and exoteric. It's always this duality. And why did the Twin Towers have to come down? It's because of their witchcraft. They have to bring down the Twin Towers so they can usher in the singularity. And the singularity is very simple. The old world order, which represents Satan, is at war with the New World Order, which represents Lucifer, the 1,000 points of light, enlightenment. And they're using all of this, including the World Cabal, which includes these devils and demons that have fallen. And they're using all this to replace the old world order with the New World Order. And then there's a switcheroo. They go to a thing called the singularity, which is represented to me in that headquarters to the Illuminati, the Rockefeller building. It's a singular building. It's the tallest pineal gland in America. And at the base is a statue and a tribute to worship Prometheus, who's Lucifer. And in this process, they had to take down the Twin Towers to leave behind the remains, and that's Lucifer, represented by the Rockefeller Center. Now, that may sound a little far-fetched, but let me just bring it home to you. If you go and look around the world, as I have, Tulum, Mexico, all the pillars, all the temples at the top have an opening window, which is the pineal gland, oftentimes faces north, just like in the book that talks about they worship Tammuz. It's like in the Bible. And they all have two columns. And once you see what I'm talking about, you'll start watching for this in all these ancient buildings, and you'll see, man, he's right, there are two columns. Why are there two columns? It represents the duality, that Lucifer and Satan are, in their scheme, two different people. And eventually, that old world order, the two columns have to come down, and the new column comes in, and that's Lucifer. And he's the new Antichrist. He's the dictator. He's the new Führer. and he runs everything absolutely despotically. No one else gives him authority. And looking like this, I try to compare this to some of my students.
Yeah.
I'll say, just like Jesus Christ, what did Father God do? Father God gave all authority to his Son.
Yeah.
And this is what Satan is doing. He's stepping out of the picture and being in the backgrounds, and he's bringing Lucifer to the foregrounds in what we call the coming singularity. We are so close to this, it's pathetic. I'm surprised it didn't happen and had nothing to do with December 21st, 2012.
Do you think it's like Lucifer's going to come in the form of a man at first? Or is he going to be a man all the time, possessed of the devil? Or how's this going to play out, Chris?
I think he's here now. I think he is a man. I believe he's a homosexual. And I think you'll find that out probably before the end of this year. But again, just like they were going to have this Mayan event take place on 12/21/12, what happened there? Nothing. Because Lucifer or Satan cannot call the shots. Jesus Christ is the one who sits at the right hand of the Father. They can't do anything without his permission. And they went, like on the Galactic Federation of Light website, they told everybody for years that this was it. There was going to be full disclosure. There would be 15.5 million UFOs that would come down upon the Earth in all the major cities, and be fully disclosed that the government's been hiding UFOs, and this would absolutely take place on December 21st, 12. Well, if I look at my calendar, that was last week.
Yeah. I wasn't really ready for all that, the UFO business. I'm not as...
Well, most people won't be, and when it happens, I'll tell you right now, most people, you need to know, you got about 3 days to make a decision and decide whether you're going to serve Lucifer or you're going to serve your genuine creator, who is Jesus Christ, who all things are created through him.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, what I see is that we do get, for those people who are on the fence, or Christians who've just grown cold, the lukewarm, I do think before the Lord comes, there's going to be some major indications. And I think you're going to have about 3 days to repent. You know, I was watching on the internet, somebody was saying, when you see them declare martial law, you got, or when you see the banks frozen on a Friday, they're not going to open on Monday. You've got 72 hours before martial law to get where you need to go. Well, God's got a better place there. I think you experience. When you see,
Chris, you're breaking up a little according to my reception of you. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you got a lot of static. I missed the last few sentences.
Okay, well, I'm going to connect the power cord. So let me see if I can turn the microphone up.
Still broken up real bad. Yeah, you want to try to call back?
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell Monique and Troy that you're calling back.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Oh, wait, now I hear you. You're good. You there? Okay, folks, we had some receptive issues, so let me see. I told Monique. Let me tell my boy Troy as well. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can hear you much better now. And you were saying...
Well, you know, Brian, you're going to have some spiritual warfare on this call, because I'm calling it like it is. And Christians have very little time to get off the fence. This is it. This may be our last radio show together. That's how close we are to the return of the Lord. They're all looking for the Mayans to return, when they should be looking for Jesus Christ. And when the Mayans calendar ended, that was only a 26,500-year cycle. Jesus is Lord forever, eternity. And out of that 26,000 years, that's just one small section of 12 sections. 12 times 26,000.5. And that'll show the whole big cycle. So there was no reason why that should be, on that date, be the end of the solar system or our galaxy, just because it was the end of the 26,500-year cycle. That cycle was identified by Plato. And believe me, that was just another day, another flip over to the next sign in the zodiac, and what I call a Mazzaroth, before the Babylonians murdered it. It was the signs in heaven God gave us, not the ones that the Babylonians intervened in and changed. It says they will change times and seasons. And that's what they're trying to do with all this big announcement about the Mayan calendar. Who cares? I want to know when Jesus is coming. And I believe he's coming very soon.
So, do you think this was like a paradigm shift moment? Do you think that something did change in the spiritual realm? As you said, we're on the cusp of seeing the Antichrist revealed. Everything is in place for that. And
right.
But first, doesn't the church have to be removed? Didn't when it says he that restrains will be removed before? Or do you think we'll see who the Antichrist is prior to the rapture? Where do you think about that?
Okay, first of all, the restrainer only keeps the Antichrist in check. As far as the church goes, there's always good people and sisters and brothers in the Lord that are really in tune with what God is doing. It's this apostate, lukewarm church that's the problem in that chapter. It's not about the good brothers and sisters of the Lord. And we're looking at, yes, a dynamic change. But guess what? The change is on the dark side. They had announced to the whole world they were going to have these 15.5 million UFOs fully disclosed a week ago. Nothing happened. So they have to live with the reality that they can't do anything they want. They're still subject to the Lord Jesus Christ. And so that was an amazing, significant event that most of the church missed.
Yeah, I didn't even realize they were predicting that.
Yes, they convinced the whole world something was going to happen. Yes, or you were going to go to a higher level of consciousness. And they've been beaming this 144 megahertz frequency now for years. And by 12/21/12, everybody was supposed to be at the new fifth dimension, the new higher level of consciousness. That didn't happen either. So there's a lot of huge, great disappointment going on the dark side in their programs and plans. I have a list of more than a dozen things that are part of their agenda. The one I like the most, though, the Constitution of the United States of America, the of the land, will be interpreted to be subordinated to the United Nations Charter. Oh, it's worse than that. Part of the Illuminati and this Galactic Federation of Light is they have this new NESARA contract, and it's to replace their Constitution. And there's a gag order on it. That's why you haven't heard about it. But supposedly, according to the Galactic Federation of Light, Obama's seen it and he's agreed to it, but he's put it on hold till after the election. Well, election's over, baby. We're going to see that one fulfilled, I think, within the next couple of months. We're going to see our Constitution thrown out the window. And, in fact, hasn't it been? We're sitting here, 5 years without any kind of a budget? Our president lives by executive order. Yeah. He can't get the Congress and the Senate to agree on anything. And why? Because out of chaos comes order. He likes it that way. He took us over the cliff so that you will sit there and think of your congressmen and senators as a bunch of buffoons and discredit them and their position and the Constitution. Because if you got all these constitutional lawyers in the Congress and Senate and they can't even pass a simple bill, then you've proven that Constitution is ineffective. And guess what? I'm going to provide a new one for you, one that's going to work. And that's exactly what happens. Out of chaos comes order. And that's exactly what Barack Obama is trying to do right at this moment.
Well, I be. Now,
this is all undermine our constitutional rights.
God
because
help us.
Why, Brian? Then happens, it's going to be martial law.
Okay, so do you think that we're going to be raptured out before things get that bad then, Chris? Or is it going to be...
No, I don't.
We're going to have to go through some...
I don't believe in the rapture theories. I believe in the rapture of the harpazo, where we're taken out, but not until God has tried everything to win this world and to win especially the lukewarm Christians back to him. That nothing will happen until that happens. And so we call that the wrath of God. And I believe that the true believers will not be here for the wrath of God. Everybody else, as far as I'm concerned, you're on your own. I can't guarantee you a thing. If you're lukewarm, if you're going to some church that believes that same-sex marriage is okay, that abortion is okay, partial birth abortion is okay, the agenda goes on and on. If you totally are against, or you for parting the land of Israel, you're a dead man. And I can't promise you if you'll be raptured or not. That would be, at that point, strictly between you and the Lord. I can tell you this, if you're walking in the Lord, if you're prophetic, if you do desire earnestly to prophesy, and you do not forbid speaking in tongues, and you have a real, tangible relationship with Jesus Christ, and you're not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, you will not go through the wrath of God. And I would guarantee that personally.
Sure.
But if you're one of these lukewarm Christians, you might even miss church sometime this year. As far as I'm concerned, don't ask me for any guarantees. I'll pull that warranty on you in a heartbeat. You only if you walk in the Lord in a genuine, spirit-filled relationship can I make any guarantees. Now, everything else is between you and the Lord. I won't judge you, but don't ask me to. Don't come up to me. You're living with your girlfriend, or you're living with your boyfriend, or you're married and you got a girl on the side. You're having an affair. You want to know if you're going to heaven. The Lord rebuke you. Don't ask me stuff like that. I will not judge you, but I will say this: you will not get any guarantees to me. In fact, if it was up to me, and thank God it isn't, I would pull your warranty on salvation in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So you're not necessarily following the once saved, always saved theory then either. How about once in a permanent relationship, always in a permanent relationship? Last Sunday, we invited you to our 40th anniversary. Okay, I got 40 years with the most beautiful woman on the planet. In its glorious, wonderful years, I am so glad I'm married. She has done so much for me in this relationship. I would never walk away from her. Well, look at the people that are in and out of church. They're hot for the Lord. At a certain time in life, and especially when things are going bad. Oh, they're back in church. I'm on fire for the Lord again. No, you're not. You're scared. You're just scared. You want God to rescue, and He does, because He's the loving God. And then next week you forgot. The church is still going on. We're still trying to reach the lost. Still trying to pay the bills. And what are you doing? You're back to golf. Mm-hmm.
And I just do not think that is going to be a qualification to miss the wrath of God. And believe me, you don't want to go through the wrath of God.
Heavens, no.
It's not going to be pretty.
I'm even concerned about the wrath of the Antichrist and these kind of things. That's before the wrath of God, Chris. That's bad enough that we may have to be here for some of that mess.
Yeah, but I've been through war. I've been through Vietnam, and every day I was almost killed. I walked point through the 101st Airborne Recon. You couldn't be a more dangerous position than I was in. And I can just tell you that I did that, not as a Christian, I did that as an American citizen. And believe me, God was there with me. He protected me. He brought me home. How much more when we're being persecuted for Christ is Christ going to be there for us? And I had a couple of hairy situations where I should have been dead, and I knew at the time I was going through it, but I never had any fear.
Wow.
I never feared dying.
That's awesome.
So how much more is it going to be, Brian, for you and I when we're challenged with a guillotine or FEMA trains or whatever they've got concocted out there? I think we're going to be strong. I think we're just going to look them right in the eye and ask for permission to pray for them.
Yeah. We ain't going to have any choice. And it gets to that. But you're right.
Right in the eye and say, hey, before you pull that trigger, can I pray for you?
Wow. Yeah, we've got to have a strong testimony. God will give us the strength. I mean, he was tested in every way, just as we are, Chris. He even gave his life on the cross, Jesus did. He didn't have to do that. So he knows what it's like to be in that position where he's willingly given his life for us.
Did Father God rapture him out of the cross?
I guess
Come on now. Let's be honest just for a second. You became a Christian. You identify with Christ's death on the cross and his resurrection and newness of life, correct?
Right.
Okay, so why does this still exist in the body of Christ? If we've identified with Christ, we should live like Christ. We should expect the same things in life. He said, if they persecuted me, how much more are they going to persecute you? And then we go into la-la land about pre-trib, mid-trib, all these tribs. And the bottom line is, you may not, it may be even tougher because of bad teaching for you to go through persecution. But there are brothers and sisters all over the world being persecuted. Look at the Coptic Christian Church in Cairo that got persecuted because President Obama wanted to blame a bad deal in Benghazi on the Christians. And he himself professes to be a Christian. Do you think that they're leaving Cairo in the droves? Yeah, they said that last week I read an article, over 100,000 Coptic Christians left Cairo within a week after Obama pulled that little stunt.
Wow.
Now, did they get raptured out of Cairo? No, they didn't get raptured. They had to get their own personality out of that place and go somewhere for safety. And guess what? There are Christians right now in Middle East, in Iraq, for example. We've misplaced over 1 million Christians. We don't know where they went. We know a lot of them were absolutely murdered and killed.
God help us.
But we don't know where they all went. We just cannot account for 1 million missing Christians. Well, did they get raptured? 1 million Christians? Is it possible there was already a rapture and you and I missed it? The church is not talking reality.
Yeah, that's something I've said on my show since the beginning of my broadcasting days, Chris. I have tried to prepare people for the possibility of being a martyr, and I don't like the idea any more than you or anybody else would. But it is a reality. Yeah. It happens every day around the globe.
Well, I would like to read you something from my new book.
All right.
Satan and Lucifer Decoded. And I admit this is a speculation and a summary. This is anecdotal. This is just my opinion, okay? Mm-hmm. But it's my opinion that the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center are the modern symbol of the duality of Satan and Lucifer, as were the twin pillars of ancient civilizations. The Twin Towers, or I call them the Twin Pillars, were built by the Illuminati. Lucifer plans to destroy the New World Order with the Old World Order, and replace it with the singularity. The singularity is a world ruled by Lucifer and NFL global cabal. That is why the World Trade Centers had to come down and the Rockefeller Center remains. The Rockefeller Center is a singular building built by Rockefeller, a well-known member of the Illuminati bloodline. The old world order is being swallowed up by the new world order, only be replaced by by Lucifer's singularity. Satan accomplished all of this by sorcery, the occult, and witchcraft. This is the last card played in the Illuminati card game before full disclosure and the total domination of the world.
Wow. When you say the last card played, are you referring to the card that showed the Twin Towers being destroyed? Well,
that's one of the cards. That's not the last card played. The last card played is when you wake up and you realize you're the only Christian in a world filled with sorcery and the occult and witches and warlocks and wizards, and they run and control everything. They're the majority. And then you wake up to that reality, and you're terrified.
Yeah.
That's the last card played, because there's nothing you can do about it. In fact, people ask me, don't you worry about speaking out so boldly against the New World Order? No, absolutely not. If you understood their agenda, as I have and have studied it all the years, they're at a point now where I'm not even a fly landed on their nose. I can't do anything. I can't accomplish anything. I can only save a few people with this information. And they know that, because they are the majority of the people in control. They're the workers of light. And they are the Illuminati, the enlightened ones. And they're not afraid of me. If you look at their master agenda, they've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that have not been completed. And most of those are in progress right now. And you can even see it yourself. And it's absolutely amazing to look at these things and see what their plans were and how nobody's been able to stop them. Next thing you know, we're going to be run by the UN. And believe me, Obama, he wants to be the president of the UN.
That's an even more elite position. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised he actually ran for re-election. The first night of the debates, I thought he threw the debates so he'd quietly step out and take on the mantle of president of the world, because they're running out of time. They actually think that they're behind right now, and they got to catch up. And so they don't want to wait and be patient. And everything they think they're going to do, the Lord said no, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Wow. What are these 5 things that are not yet completed, Chris?
Well, let me just give you a couple. First of all, martial law. It'll be used as a control mechanism within the United States. Now, it is being used, but they haven't actually had martial law, except they have used posse comitatus in a couple of situations where, like the shooting in Aurora and the shooting at Sandy Hook, things like that. They are already bringing in military forces to look at these things that, quite honestly, that's against our Constitution. So in fact, the law itself is breaking the law in the process of actually fulfilling this one. How about there will be an economic collapse leading to a North American Union and currency merger? That's the whole thing that's going on right now. We just had it last night. We went over the fiscal cliff.
Wow.
So it's not complete because the banks are still open. But let me give you a clue. If you go on next Friday, if somebody says, well, we had a viral attack against the banking computer industry and their operators, and so we're going to shut them down on Friday, but we'll open them back up on Monday. What that tells me is I now have 72 hours before martial law. If I want to go somewhere and, to hide out or a cabin in the forest, I got 72 hours to get there. Because Monday, those banks are not going to open up.
Wow.
And so you can see it in progress. I see it right now with the Congress, the Senate, and Obama declaring victory. What, you mean a victory in chaos? Well, yes, he does, because out of chaos comes order. That is the motto of the New World Order. That is the motto of the Illuminati, of whom he is just a puppet. You want to see another one?
I guess.
You will be forced to pay a global tax to a global authority, starting with the carbon tax, known as cap and trade, to set precedent. Is that in progress?
Yeah. I mean, they've been talking about it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Dole is the grandfather of this. I call it Agenda 21 because the only purposes of Agenda 21 is to be able to start their own global tax to save our environment. When in fact China says, Russia says no. If we say no, we're just the bad guys of the world, you know. And all it is just another mechanism to destroy the economies of America, to destroy people's property and stuff. Because one of the agendas of Lucifer is he wants to own all the property. He's the god of this world. He loves foreclosures by the millions. This is his plan. And here's another one. There will be a universal identification system for all inhabitants of the earth based on current technologies. And believe me, they can do it. They can actually, with DNA, they have devices where they can observe you in the airport and check your DNA without ever touching you and know exactly who you are. So that's in progress.
Wow.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Scary, yes, sir.
But you know what? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but
right.
Power, love, and a sound mind. I'm just not afraid. You know, I just really am not. I just really believe that the enemy is trying to pull all this stuff off. He can't even get an increased tax through on the wealthy. The bottom line is Obama argued with Mitt Romney during the debates that he would put more taxes on the wealthy who earn more than $1 million. Well, since he got elected, that was down to $250. And then he said he's the big compromiser. He was going to go to $400,000. Well, that's a galactic lie. You said $1 million in the debates in front of the whole world. So you never had any intention ever of sticking to your commitment that you said during that debate. In fact, I heard today they passed 2% on every wage earner.
Wow.
So what's that, the war? The Obama war on the middle class or the Obama war on the working class? Listen, he was promising to do the rich. He couldn't do it. So he did the middle class and the poor. And that's reality, my friend. That is what's going on TV before your eyes. And you ask somebody that voted for Obama, how do they feel about that? And they're like, oh, whatever. Yeah. You know, air for brain.
Till it comes out of the paycheck and they can't afford to fuel the car or feed the family anymore.
Well, that's just it, you know. I have some in-laws, and they're both retired school teachers, and they are all for this environmental program. You know, we're going to pay for the environment, which is going to kill millions of jobs. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm not for the planet. God gave us authority over the planet, and we're supposed to take care of it. But the bottom line is their plan is to destroy America. It's not to fix the world. That is a myth. And anybody that looks close enough will find that out. Well, I suggested to her, well, if, you know, we're short right now about 34 million jobs. You know, if we had 35 more people in the workforce next week, we could actually, Social Security and retirement would probably last a little longer. But it's still doomed because it went wrong. The liberals took all the money from Social Security, all the years we were paying into it, they spent it. And so they always face, well, the next generation will give them the money they will need. Well, yeah, but there's no jobs. And so if you're retired and you voted for Obama, you just shot yourself in the foot.
Wow. I see that. That's amazing. My God.
You wonder, like, okay, if you're really Christians, you guys really know the Lord, you're in the Word, you're generous, you give tithes and offerings, you are in the Spirit in prayer, and you know what the Holy Spirit's saying. Why did you vote for Obama? Obama has sent billions of dollars to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is just an Islamic religious organization, the largest organization of Islam in the world. Now, if I was to say to President Barack Obama, where's my $1.5 billion? He'd say, but Chris, we have separation of church and state. I said, no, you don't. That's only for Americans. You're more than glad to punch money into the Muslim Brotherhood and all these other rebellious groups, the rebels, even Al-Qaeda in Syria. You just don't believe in the church. And then you get on TV and tell everybody it was a Coptic Christian filmmaker that caused Benghazi, when you knew that was a lie.
Tripping. Dude, this is tripping. Oh, my goodness. So, now, in the end, when we get to the end of the 1,000-year reign and the devil is loosed again, so we're going to have to go through all this even after we reign with the Lord for 1,000 years. We're going to be having to witness those folks.
Yes. No, if you survive the first death, you'll never, ever, ever have to worry about.
Well, I know we won't.
That's only
personally, but we'll have to.
This is for all the Christians. Listen, Brian. This is for all those lukewarm, whipped Christians who were more interested in going to the movies than going on a mission, that are going to be given a chance. And the only way God can test them is to set up this scenario again in the end where He lets loose. It doesn't say Satan escapes, but He lets Lucifer and who else? The armies of Turkey, Gog and Magog. He's the one that lets them loose to test them. And why is that? Because God has a right to test.
Well, because, those people that are living as humans during the 1,000-year reign, they have to be tested again, just as we were. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's I guess the reasoning, and they have to decide for themselves, just like we have to decide right now, Chris. Are we going to serve God or not? And
no.
Wow.
Do you remember Deuteronomy 13 verses 1 through 4?
Well, not right offhand.
Well, let me just refresh your mind, okay? I want Christians to get this really clear. We're not supposed to be psychics. We're not supposed to be palm readers or Ouija boards or tarot cards. We're not supposed to get up and check our astrology chart in the morning. And this is where it spells it out, and it tells you why.
All right.
If a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears among you and announces to you a miraculous sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder of which he has spoken takes place, in other words, it's real, and says, let us follow other gods, gods you have not known, and let us worship them. You must not listen to the words of that prophet or the dreamer. And here's the why. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love Him with all your heart and with all your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and Him you must revere. Keep His commands and obey Him. Serve Him and hold fast to Him. Now, what's going on with so many of these occult UFO cults, like take Lord Maitreya. He's got his little channeler, Benjamin Creme. And channeling is a form of demon possession.
Yeah.
Look at the Galactic Federation of Light. They have 20 channelers that I know of. And at least I know 18 of them by name. They got over 20 channelers. And what do? They lay down in a bed, and they open themselves up. They go into a trance oftentimes, and an alien speaks to them all the things I've discussed with you just in this last hour. And they write them all down. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about that. I think that the beast is Satan. I think that the Antichrist is Lucifer. And the false prophet, I think could be plural. It could be these channelers at the end of the age. All these channelers are telling you these conversations from Lord Maitreya or Lord Sananda or Lord Ashtar or Metatron or, and the list is endless, Saint Germain, Saint Francis of Assisi. They're channeling all these messages to us, inviting us to go to a higher level of consciousness. This is just like back to the line of the garden, that you two can be God. You know, and Luciferians will say, well, you are a God. Yeah, but somehow or another we're an incomplete God, because now, again, we have to ramp up to another level of God consciousness. Now let's love my relationship with Jesus Christ. I don't have to do anything. Spiritually, it's probably the laziest relationship with God on the planet, because He did it all. He died on the cross for me, He shed His blood, and He rose from the dead.
Yeah.
And none of these guys have done this. None of them.
Wow. That's pretty awesome, dog. I'm enjoying this. And it's true. He is it. He's done it all. I mean, I'm praying for the people in Israel to come to the realization, too, before we were out of time, that Jesus was the Messiah. I mean, there's going to come a day soon where they're calling out for Him because there's no other hope. You know, yeah. We're getting to that point. I mean, you can see the places there in the Middle East, the pieces getting into place. It's just kind of all falling together, brother.
Amen.
It's scary.
Well, I know you're running out of time here, so I'd like to suggest two things. One, I want to leave you with one thought. According to the Galactic Federation of Life, Metatron went to the United Nations on September 10th, 2011, and he gave them the message of what the New World Constitution will be. And he was received, but he was channeled by a guy named James Tiburon. So he wasn't even really there. It was this young kid channeling him. So that's the state of the nation. The world will listen to a channeler that's talking, an alien talking through him. But will they listen to a Christian? Absolutely not.
So the world's actually listening to that, huh?
Oh, yeah. The United Nations. I can't get into the United Nations and tell them about my book.
90 seconds.
No, man. This is a totally closed camp. It's been taken over by sorcerers, the occult, and witches. And I want to just ask you one thing, too. I would love to put an ad on your website book. So I'd like you to think about that, pray about that, because I would love to do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how to find out how to get the book, and if my listening audience wants to get a copy.
60 seconds.
For Decoded. Where can they go right now? And we could talk about it.
Yeah, just go to LogosChristian.org.
LogosChristian.org.
Yeah, it'll be up there, and we haven't released it yet. We still want to make sure we got all our legal T's and I's dotted. But it'll be out within 2 weeks. And this book is going to destroy the New Age community. This book will destroy the whole Luciferian package of the struggle between the old world order and the new world order, which is going to be totally mandated into a singularity run by Lucifer. Wow. And believe me, my book will undermine it so badly that you want to buy copies, well, it's still available.
10 seconds.
Okay, and happy anniversary, by the way, Chris.
Well, thank you, Brian.
I'm sorry we didn't make it. I didn't know about the invitation. My wife must have got it on her email, and but I didn't know about that. That was last week?
Yeah, last Sunday, or 2 Sundays ago now. It was on the 16th.
Okay, I remember somebody had mentioned that, to come on.
Yeah, 40 years with this woman, and I tell you, I've taken her everywhere in the world. We've been on 5 different mission fields together, and every one of those mission experiences were awesome. And if I said, hey, tomorrow morning we got up and I said, we're going to go to Kenya today, she wouldn't even say okay. She'd just go pack her bags.
Cool.
That's the kind of woman I live with.
You're a blessed man, then.
I am. She's a godly woman, and I'll tell you, she loves to go for God.
Well, she knows who her master is, and I mean God.
Yeah, it's not me. I say that.
But she don't mind, because, and I'm grateful to have my wife. I wouldn't be on the air tonight if it wasn't for her pushing me,
Amen.
you know, to do what I do. I mean,
yeah. Please
I don't know how I
do
that. Yes, I will tell her that, and we'll see you soon, Chris. God bless you, man.
God bless
Congrats
you, and have
on
a
the
great
book.
night.
All right. Good night. Good night, everybody in the listening audience. God bless you all. Tune in again. Come tomorrow. I think tomorrow will be, Thursday. I think we probably will have a show tomorrow, because we'll talk to y'all then.
I kneel, I bow to you, my king. Lay down my pride, my desires, my demise. Ready now to see it your way.